And welcome to another Invasion of the Remake podcast. Today we're doing something a little different. It is Invasion of the Retrospective, featuring Wes Craven. And Wes Craven recently passed away at the age of 76 from complications of brain cancer. And he left one heck of a horror legacy with us, and it's a good second episode to talk about the life of Wes Craven for our October Halloween fest. And of course, my ghosts and ghouls with me today, as usual, Trish Coughlin.
Hello, everybody.
And Master of the Macabre, Jeff McNair.
Hi, everybody. I had something clever and I lost it, so...
Oh, no.
That's all you get, yeah.
Hey, we watched too much
chances.
Craven. There's so much clever in there. There's a lot going on.
A lot going on, yeah.
He did a lot of amazing stuff that changed a lot of
we're going to
the
go
way we did
through a
things.
lot of that, but I think the first thing to talk about really is what was our first exposures to Wes Craven. And for me, anyway, I think my first movie was Swamp Thing. I was obviously a big comic book fan. I've talked about that before on the show. Mm-hmm. I've got Swamp Thing hanging on my wall right now.
Yes.
And it was this dark comic book movie, and one of the first, really. And I quite fell in love with that movie. And by today's standards, as I got older, I didn't want to watch it anymore because the rubber suits and it just.
Oh man.
It's pretty hard.
I don't know. I watched it today. I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's still and that was one of his first and maybe his only movie where he just did a balls out action adventure movie.
Yeah.
Like a Hollywood studio movie.
I watched it. We all watched it this weekend. I watched it recently
as
well. One of the things I thought of while watching that movie, and maybe it's been said before, is that it really feels like one of those 50s science fiction monster flicks.
Oh, yeah.
And watching it and like how you clearly were under some pretty crazy budget restraints. I don't know what the budget was for that movie, but it was low, I'm sure. And probably got lower and lower as production went along. I felt like I'm going to watch that movie again and I'm going to put my color all the way out on my TV and just watch it in black and white. And I think that it would be a better movie. You wouldn't notice the zippers and the dual mouths and just...
There's something about it that feels classic, like almost Universal Monster inspired.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the slickness of the Scream Factory Blu-ray maybe doesn't lend it any favor. We've talked about that before, about how sometimes things get cleaned up and they lose a little bit of their flavor, I guess.
I think it's supposed to feel cartoony and not really real. Like, it's just... He captured that bit of it. And, like, I sort of watched it when I was little, and I kind of previously just saw the creature from the Black Lagoon. So I was, like, very sympathetic to, like, creatures.
Creatures in the swamp.
Creatures in swamps and lagoons.
That entire movie, actually, it has nothing to do with Swamp Thing. It has to do with Adrienne Barbeau's inability to not fall in the friggin' water every 10 minutes.
God.
That's the whole movie, is her running and falling into water. And that hair.
And then the last half is just...
last
half is just showing off her rack.
Oh,
really.
yeah. Well, every movie's showing off
It's
her rack.
impressive.
It's actually one of the few movies that she, like, shows off her rack. Yeah. I was surprised that there was nudity in that. I forgot.
Although, to be fair...
That was the 93-minute uncut one, because that one's actually tough to find with the nudity. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
well,
it's about an extra 2 minutes longer.
The new Blu-ray has it in there, too. And there's actually a really great interview with Adrienne Barbeau who talks about how, she loved Wes, and he had this amazing script, and they all were, like, really for the project and loved it. And then as the movie went along in production and the budgets got tighter and the studio got more involved, it got cut. And when they finally went to the opening screening, she watched it and was just like, what the hell is this? Like, it wasn't really Wes's vision of that movie. It was something completely different. And she had said, and I'll horribly misquote her, but she basically said that she didn't want to go around promoting this film that she starred in because it was so bad.
And, well, to be strange, it's sort of, you can see the changes in tone while you watch it. Like, in parts of it, she's like a hard-hitting, like, kind of government person. Like, she's not a dummy. And then
she's
other parts, she's
badass in that movie. She slugs guys.
But then at points, she's a damsel in distress, too. So it's kind of like it doesn't really know what to do with her. Like, because of those shift changes, she seems very inconsistent.
Yeah, for sure. I felt like the very beginning of that movie, like, up until... the doctor like bursts into flames.
Until he becomes
the whole beginning part is like really like solid. They have a firm direction, and then it's just like, oh, we have exploding boats and
Yeah.
in a rubber suit, and that's the end of it.
We're going to have the most incompetent group of guys go after this big thing. And then they're somewhat incompetent for a little while. Then they're more incompetent again.
Yeah, shockingly more incompetent. And I love how a lot of the themes in Wes Craven's movies is like the humanity and everything, right? And like,
oh yeah,
Adrian Barbeau even talks about how the guy who played Swamp Thing, the creature, who's I guess a really famous guy, I can't remember his name, but he's just portrays such great humanity and stuff. And like, I don't know if you noticed this, but I kind of felt like the mask that he was wearing had kind of like a permanent smirk.
Yeah,
like just the way the face was built, and so it just kind of seemed.
But there's a lot with his eyes that he was doing. Like it's like there's this in his posture. There's
the end. These hands. These hands. We love each other. That was weird too. Hey, their like love affair spawns from like a forced kiss.
Yeah, I know.
The very beginning of the movie. Yeah, funny.
That's a trope that was around for a while. A forced kiss.
It's like the African Queen. I always go back to the African Queen because it has the most ridiculous love interest story. But this one is actually possibly worse.
I know.
It comes out of nowhere.
I know.
But yeah, probably not the shining gem in his filmography. That's for sure.
Well, he's got some rocks in there and some gems.
Oh yeah.
And it's okay. Swamp Thing was
who
mine.
Doesn't really?
What was yours, Jeff? What was your first Craven movie?
I think really the first one I watched was People Under the Stairs because it was on TV a lot, and I feel like that was the one because out of all of his movies, that's probably the one I've seen the most. Mm-hmm. Weirdly enough, I really love that movie, mm-hmm. and I kind of remember seeing it on TV, and then way later I would rent the Nightmares and the Fridays and stuff as I got into the slashers. But that's probably my first one that I can think of.
Yeah, that one, I remember that one. Like, I've seen both of those. I think Swamp Thing might have been my first, but the one that stuck in my head from when I was younger was like one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, but it was Dream Warriors. I didn't start at the beginning. I started with Dream Warriors and then found the other ones later.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't know, I liked the ending. I think it's probably because I thought it was like, oh yeah, this girl's gonna like get him. Like, I don't know, I just enjoyed that one. I liked Dream Warriors, where they're trying not to fall asleep.
That's probably my favorite of the Nightmares.
Yeah, I think most people, and it's probably just Dawkins. We just all think of the Dream Warriors theme song all the time.
Well, I felt it was for the Freddy franchise what Aliens was to the Aliens franchise. Coming and expanding on that world, and it really broadened the scope of what Freddy is, and at the same time probably was its death knell, because it ventured quite deeply into camp after that. So
yeah, it was probably the first of like the horror comedy blend for that series. Like the original Nightmare on Elm Street is actually quite a serious horror movie.
Yeah.
It's scary. Freddy is scary. He doesn't say or do a whole lot. The kills are extremely gory, and as you get further along, especially in Dream Warriors, the kills get a little more funny, like with like the marionettes and
they become more absurd, and then it's totally more. I think it's also when I think they kind of came to the conclusion that like Freddy is the star. People love Freddy, like they know he's killing people, but they love Freddy. Like he's got
and they kind of changed him and made him more fun. I mean, humor plays a big part in a good hunk of his movies. I mean, there's those early ones are definitely dark and nasty, but even Last House on the Left had those comedy cops, so to really kind of break up the intensity a bit.
Yeah, there's
a bit though.
Freddy, I mean, the first Nightmare really doesn't have much.
No,
I can't think of a single instance of intentional comedy in there.
No, that all comes after.
Yeah,
for sure. Like
by the third one, there really isn't any in the second one either. At least not intentionally.
Not intentional.
No. Oh no.
No, but the second one, like Freddy's quite a terrifying character in that too.
Yeah.
And I think that they didn't know where to take.
They expanded him a bit more in that one. I think that's they might have figured it out.
Craven certainly brought him back to those roots in New Nightmare as well.
Yeah, oh my God, yes.
He didn't have anything to do with the second one.
No, not at all.
Yeah, he wrote the first, third, and seventh. And
there was some pretty public knowledge there. I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but him and Bob Shea had a really difficult shoot on that first Nightmare, and Wes Craven kind of walked away for a little while.
For sure.
Not too long though.
No. 1 year, he's good.
Yeah, exactly. He's like going, oh, these guys don't know what they're doing. I will wade back in here and fix it.
Trials and tribulation of being a filmmaker. God knows we'll get to Cursed and how cursed that production actually was. So, all right. Well, that we've all got our first with Craven. I think everybody's seen at least one Craven movie in their life, and it's probably a Freddy Krueger movie.
Oh, for sure. And he's got like 2 franchises that have changed horror.
You know, he brought Scream to television, and he was working on bringing another one to television as well. I think it was Hills.
Oh, that would be interesting as like a TV series. I don't know how.
Yeah, well, Hills and Shocker, he was both trying to revive, so in one way, form or another again. So, I mean, he got 2 remakes out of Hills Have Eyes. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
which he had a hand in both of those.
Yeah,
as well as the remake of Last House on the Left.
Yeah,
talking about remakes on the podcast.
And that's the thing. We'll
some of the most terrifying stuff he has are not supernatural. It's always like it's just something that with real humans in it.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that makes me most uncomfortable that he's done have real humans.
And that's the thing. We're going to really get into depth in probably a lot of these movies because a lot of them have been remade. So look for in-depth discussions down the road, but we won't do them too soon. But
for sure.
Just to gloss it.
You guys are all waiting for Nightmare on Elm Street. Actually, interesting fact. Johnny Depp, when he was on the way to the Nightmare auditions, he went to accompany his buddy, Jackie Earle Haley, who got to play Freddy later on in the 2010 remake. So,
I had no idea.
There you go.
Lots
of fun facts with
Wes. This is one of them learning podcasts.
I don't know if you can call trivia learning.
Yeah.
We will give you useless information that you can pull out at parties.
Well, before we started this podcast, and since we're in it, he did before he started directing and writing mainstream cinema, he wrote a lot of porno.
Yeah, he wrote and edited a lot of porno.
Yeah. And this is all new to me, so I'm quite... Which pornos? Like, what kind of pornos do you guys...
Yeah, 70s porn. Pizza delivery guys and...
Plumbers.
If you're asking us for names, we don't know.
He had a writer credit, so take that as you will. Under pseudonyms, of course. I couldn't possibly track any of them down. But he's not the only... exploitation director to come out of porn. Like William Lustig did porn as well. He vehemently denies it, but he's the guy who did Maniac and Vigilante and Maniac Cop with Larry Cohen, who we talked about last week.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So he's not the only guy. It wasn't unusual in that time period in the 60s and 70s to do porn first and then move on into other things. Like,
to be fair,
Sylvester Stallone, which is more of a softcore than an actual porn.
But to be fair, say what you like. When it comes to like the old days of like porn as a starting point, I mean, you learn technical stuff that you do on a porn set, whether you like it or not. You learn lighting. You learn how to shoot something.
Yeah, lighting's really, really important. You got to hide all the mistakes.
Yeah,
and body makeup.
Body makeup.
Invasion of the porn cast.
Fluids, but it's fake blood in horror, and in porn it's not.
Now, Wes Craven did a bunch of movies. He was involved as a producer and a writer on a bunch of stuff, but he had 26 films as a director. And the first one of that being Last House on the Left. And one of the truly... it's a nasty. It's a video nasty. It is a strong cup of coffee in the morning. When the slasher films were really kicking off, and you watch Halloween and other contemporaries of the time, but that one just wakes you up and slaps you across the face a few times.
I don't know if I would consider Last House on the Left a slasher movie.
I don't know if I would put it in that genre per se, but
it's revenge film.
Yeah, it's certainly that.
It's the very, very big genre of rape revenge stuff, and a lot of stuff like that was coming out at that time. Like often when I think back on those movies for like discussions like this or with my friends or whatever, is I get like I Spit on Your Grave and Last House mixed together, and they're
very similar movies.
Very similar, yeah. So it wasn't groundbreaking in its concept, I would say, but he definitely takes that movie to a place where other exploitative revenge movies never went. Especially with humanizing the killers is something that
that
I thought
scene
was really
after
that scene
the
is just
brutal raping and beating and of this poor woman, and
spoiler alert, disemboweling in a movie in 1972.
Yeah, it's nasty, and they're just looking at their hands and covered in blood, and this one moment of wow, what did we do?
Yeah, and that is something that
it's a powerful moment in the movie.
It's probably it's the defining moment in that film.
Yeah,
like everything leading up is for that one moment where they went too far and they realize that, and then they go to the house, the last house on the left, and then they, it comes to pass that the parents realize what happened, and then they go too far, taking revenge, right? And the same thing happens in Hills Have Eyes, where the family is subjected with this brutal violence, and they resort to brutal violence
to survive
to survive and to avenge their lost family members, which is exactly... So it's a similar theme. And they came right after each other, I think.
Yeah, they're really close together.
Yeah, 72.
He did,
72 and 77,
77,
right?
so 5 years.
He did the Fireworks Woman between that, which I really know nothing about that movie.
No, that one I
couldn't
find anything on.
No, yeah. I think most people consider Hills Have Eyes a second movie, but, you take jobs, especially early in your career, and... if anybody knows what this movie's about, please write us on our boards at Invasion Remake on Twitter, or Invasion of the Remake at on our Facebook page, and of course gmail.com. So and Hills Have Eyes is a pretty brutal movie in and of itself, and it was kind of a birth of another genre. Despite that,
the kind of hillbilly
mountain men kind of thing.
I mean,
cannibalistic
Deliverance
stuff.
Deliverance was before that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess there was a bit more.
Deliverance is a kayak movie, but
really,
it's a sporting movie.
I thought it was a canoe movie.
Is it canoes? I swear they were kayaking down that river.
Canoes and arrows is what I remember about that film.
I actually was extremely disappointed watching Deliverance because. There's so much focus on that moment in that movie, and it's 10 minutes in a 2.5 hour kayaking movie, right? It's not what it's about. I think what The Hills Have Eyes is playing off is that really popular in the mid to late 60s and early 70s cannibal movie trope, right? That you saw a lot with Italian filmmakers, and what's the guy, Ruggero something, who did Cannibal Holocaust, Cannibal Pharaoh,
the two
of the Cannibal Gods,
most nasty movies.
Yeah, so I think it was his Americanized take on the cannibal.
Well, so was Texas Chainsaw, really.
Yeah, actually, Last House on the Left was banned in a lot of places too. It had, even now, I don't think it's rated in the UK.
Yeah, maybe they're allowed to watch it now.
There's only a few
they've aired it, but
they've had.
I
Spit on Your Grave. I don't even know if it's. Ratings. I think it might still be banned. I'm not sure.
No, those movies definitely had some issues across the board, multiple borders.
Well, it's what I like. Both those two, the horror comes from real humans doing things.
Yeah, Hills Have Eyes had to go through some massive cutting. The original rating on that was an X. Which was probably not Wes's first.
No.
Yeah.
Only one?
He's probably like, okay, that's good. Oh, wait, no, sorry. This is a main movie. Got to remember that.
Yeah, and they changed the ending, too, of that movie. They cut it, I don't know if you guys watched it in a recent memory. I watched it yesterday.
Not recently. No.
On Laserdisc. And,
Jeff doesn't use modern technology.
I don't know how to download anything.
No, there's iTunes and
Jeff has Laserdisc. If you find Laserdisc anywhere, we know somebody who can help you.
They look like records. Records were what music used to be on, and never mind.
No, records have made a comeback. Yeah. People will know what records are.
But the movie was, the ending, there was supposedly the original ending, they enact their revenge and the remnants of the family get back together and wander off or whatever, rather than the ending where the guy commits the brutal act of revenge and it just cuts. So you're left with this moment. And I think Last House is the same way, where it's a quick cut. So I don't know. Yeah, they were pretty neat. Oh, God. Let's talk about the next one. Have you guys seen Deadly Blessing?
I have not, but Trish is giggling like a madman. So.
I watched it. Not part of his highlight reel.
I didn't know this movie existed until I started researching.
Speaking
for this
about
episode.
weird families and otherness, this is another one. Only they have something called the Hittites, which are not Amish, but Amish-like, who are like these people that live around. And it starts off with a woman who's like married to her like this guy left the Hittite community, so was shunned, of course, but they're not Amish. But and then he goes to university and comes back and has a tractor, so he's evil, of course. And just sort of these things keep happening around the house, and like her husband is killed, and then like her other friends from LA come out to help her, but there's still this evil presence that's around doing stuff to them. Like one of her friends dies and another friend dies. It's really kind of an all over the place mess, really.
Now let's talk about who leads the evil Amish-ish people.
Ernest Borgnine.
Oh, no.
There's people in there. There's Ernest Borgnine, Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone, one of her first film roles.
One of her first film roles.
Wow.
Which leads me to the rule I always like: leave Sharon Stone alive. you won't go too far wrong if you leave Sharon Stone alive. That's all I know.
The return of Michael Berryman.
Michael Berryman
Nice.
is in it. He plays a touched, as they say, one of the Amish guys who keeps yelling incubus, incubus, like because they have other neighbors who also aren't Hittite, but they just refuse to leave. It's Faith and her mother's like, I don't know. It's weird. Her mother plays like this, the woman who plays the girl's mother, like this character that's like just, I don't know, just like on heat, like 24/7. Like, and she gets called incubus too, which is, every time they say that, it just drives me nuts because succubus is the female version of that.
He's confused. He's tetched.
Yeah, he's tetched. But they still call her an incubus, like the woman who's married, like the Hittite guy who came back because he inherited the farm, so they decided to move back there. And yeah, she's called an incubus too, because apparently, as Hittites, they aren't reading what the female and male versions of demons are.
Not important.
Not important.
Demons are important. Yeah, it's kind of a mess. That movie.
You know what?
I liked it until the ending.
Oh,
it's totally retarded.
Here's my tip for anybody who wants to watch this. It's interesting. It's nice to watch Sharon Stone in her first role, where she's not a badass. She's kind of annoying and kind of pointless. Mm-hmm. But kill it before the last minute. Like when Sharon Stone gets in the car with the sheriff to leave, just stop it and never watch the rest of it.
Yeah. The ending I really dislike. Like it just comes out
1 minute. Well, it's stupid. Yeah. And the other part is like, we'll tell them the ending. Do you
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Movie came out in 1981.
Movie came out in 1981. Well, what happens is all of a sudden, after the sheriff leaves, the ghost of her husband shows up. Beware the incubus. And then something bursts through the floor and grabs her and pulls her down, which I guess is the incubus.
Or the devil.
Yeah, the devil, which is like, There's two problems I have with this. A, if her husband's coming back, like, you come back at now, you're just useless. Go away. Stay dead. You shouldn't have come back. What? Beware. How is she supposed to beware? It comes shooting through the floor.
Yeah. It's kind of like a tuck and roll, he should have said, hey? Like.
Yeah, he should have said tuck and roll or like just, I don't know, look down.
The thing I really loved about Deadly Blessing, which wasn't a lot about Deadly Blessing, just to plug Scream Factory again, who's not a sponsor yet, they released this on Blu-ray, and it's very good. So, what I like about this movie is Michael Berryman plays a very similar character to Jupiter in Hills Have Eyes, but I don't know if you felt this, but I thought like it was like the best role I've seen him in. His acting is really like sincere and believable and almost sympathetic. Like it just was like my favorite Michael Berryman role was in this movie. So despite being terrible and it's fun to see Ernest Borgnine in a horror movie, I thought Michael Berryman like shone in this movie. Like he was really good. He was good.
Like it is. He was one of the people holding back the most, I feel, which was quite nice to see. But wasn't he? Well, I think my favorite role actually isn't this. I think he has like the small shot in like Weird Science as one of the evil bikers. Yeah. I think that's his best role. I thought he was a delight in that. But yeah, like the last little bit, not good. It's kind of a mess. But I read some other stuff about it where the two guys that wrote it, like Wes Craven did a rewrite on it, a heavy rewrite, because he said it was just a mess. And even with heavy rewrites, it's still quite a bit of a mess. But I keep wondering, like, if there's more time dedicated to it, it could have been something. It might have been something. You could have dialed up a lot of the unknownness of it. But yeah, not a shining crown. But you get to see a lot of people that you wouldn't normally see. Also, there's one guy in it who played young Superman. In the first Superman movie. He plays teenage Clark Kent. but he plays one of the Hittite guys
Right.
who's eventually shunned by the community.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah, the one that was all sweet on the girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, he looks adorable, so I
That
looked
old
him up,
chestnut.
and that's what I found out.
Well, his next film, of course, was Swamp Thing, which we've kind of already talked about, and we all love it for its strengths and faults.
I know. It's an interesting movie. I don't know. I
Yeah.
like the concept of it.
Yeah, but the thing about a lot of his movies, though, is strong casting. A lot of times he's either using somebody like Ernest, who's established. He's usually got a couple of veterans and then some really young talent. And some of that talent went on to a couple of good things.
Bigger stuff, yeah.
Bigger
Yeah.
stuff.
That's one of the things with him, though. And now,
got a good
true.
eye.
That's what I kept thinking.
now that
Yeah.
we're getting into his next year of releases in 1984, he gives a young talent a huge break.
Oh my God, yeah.
Becomes a household name, right?
Yes.
But, so the first one released that year, I think, was Invitation to Hell.
Yeah,
which was,
out of 3 movies that year?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was maybe a made-for-TV.
It was made for TV, definitely made for TV. I watched a bit of it.
Oh, yeah.
I watched some of it. Watched part of it.
She didn't watch it at all.
I watched it's here's the thing. I didn't know it was a TV movie because it wasn't listed as a TV movie, but then I saw the first 5 minutes, which told me it was a TV movie. Because you have Susan Lucci. Not to say she hasn't done film work, but still, it's Susan Lucci.
Enough said.
With a silly comical moment, but yeah, basically the lowdown of that whole movie is this family moves to like a tech town. Robert Urich is the father because he's got a job in this tech town, and there's like
Also a sure sign it's television.
for sure. And a country club of evil people who like sell their souls to the devil, for success. But it has like quite a few names in
you
it,
do.
actually. Joe Pantoliano, who I saw, he was in Murphy Brown for so many years. Robert Urich. You have the kid who played the robot in Daryl. He's done
remember
quite a
Daryl?
few movies. And Soleil Moon Frye, who others of you might know as Punky Brewster.
Yeah, that's who she was. I saw her name on the list there. I'm like, oh, that's so familiar.
Yeah, so it has a lot of people
It's a lot
in
of my childhood in
And a
that
cameo
movie.
by Michael Berryman.
it. Probably.
Yep,
I
he
didn't
plays the
see that.
bad
And Craven does reuse actors. That definitely near the end of his career there with Scream and Curse. There's a lot of carryover from those movies.
Yeah.
And that's probably a lot of Kevin Williamson in there as well because he scripted a lot of that stuff as well.
But with the TV movie, you can tell everything's kind of dialed back. He just inserts a lot more comedy because that sort of helps things. And I forgot how handsome Robert Urich was at that time, so there you are.
The next movie I have actually never seen.
The Hills Have Eyes Part 2?
I have
Never
not
seen the
either.
original sequel.
I have not seen the original sequel either. It has a 0 rating on Rotten Tomatoes and
That could be why I
has
haven't.
been disowned by Wes Craven himself.
Oh, so we'll
And he wrote and directed it.
And
we'll
he wrote
bow
and
to
directed
him.
it.
We'll not.
So
we
if-
shall not acknowledge this, Wes.
Yeah, if Wes decides to not acknowledge it, neither shall we. Moving on. Although I don't know how much of that made it into the second remake for Hills Have Eyes. I'm guessing it was just whole cloth. I have not
No,
seen
the second remake. I haven't seen the previous one.
I
but
guess
the remake,
we don't know.
Yeah, but the remake seemed to had a very 70s feel to it. It didn't seem like they went too far with a bunch of stuff. I don't.
Right.
I think it was mostly
Just new content stuff. Yeah.
just new actors, slightly new content.
Well, this next one, I don't know. Maybe it's a little. It's
Little
underappreciated.
known
It's. I don't know if most of you have heard about it yet. This dude with claws,
Knives.
yeah.
Freddy Krueger,
It's
maybe.
Knives.
Knives?
Jason, no, Freddy.
Oh no, it's not knives. Razors. They always
Razors.
say
Razors,
It's
yeah,
got
razor
razors.
claws.
It's got razors.
I had in
shaving.
one interview he says like a glove with steak knives on it. I'm like, well, they didn't look like serrated knives, but all right.
Yeah, no.
So yes, we were talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, and this one is. I'm sure everybody in our audience has seen. This one is
It's-
a horror classic and spawned 6 sequels and then a crossover movie and a remake.
Television series.
And a
Television series.
television series,
So good.
music videos,
Merchandising.
toys up the wazoo.
I have a record called Freddy's Greatest Hits. That is it's by the Elm Street Players. and they're an 80s pop band.
I remember this.
But Robert Englund sings as Freddy on the album. Which is a beautiful mess.
I was with
What does he sing? I have to know.
Oh, ridiculous stuff. There's actually, like...
To this day, I want this thing, because I had it in my hand, and I was with one of my buddies. It's like,
and you didn't buy it?
No, he was making fun of me for even contemplating it, so I put it back.
That's when you sneak back and buy it.
I should have. I totally should have, because to this day, I want that thing.
It's actually quite a hard-to-find album. I looked for a long time to get it. I found one on cassette. And
that's how I found it.
I got lucky, and a friend of mine, Barry, if you're listening, he sold me his record collection, and he was a big horror movie fan, science fiction fan, and his record collection consisted of all horror soundtracks. So it was pretty amazing, but that was mixed in there, so I gave away my cassette to a local horror pop artist, Chris LeBrenz from Edmonton. I think you know him.
Mm-hmm.
I gave that to him and kept the record. But yeah, it's a beautiful mess. Like it was not what I was expecting at all. Like it's like Cyndi Lauper pop music, and then once in a while Freddie sings. It's the craziest thing.
Not what I was expecting at all.
I want to hear it now.
We'll do a listening party sometime.
But I seriously want. Like, what songs do you remember? What he sings? Any of them?
I don't. He sings on all of them. There's actually only one or two covers, and then there's a couple like original.
I just imagine him singing "Ghouls Just Want to Have Fun" or something like that.
No, that would be amazing. But, yeah, so.
Or "I Did It My Way." I just imagine him singing that. I don't know why.
Robert Englund. Actually, at the end of Street Trash, one of the actors in Street Trash sings "I Did It My Way" as his character, which we recently
way to go.
saw. Yep. Robert Englund, multifaceted performer. I'm looking at the cast list here.
He's awesome.
And I think that everybody big in this movie is big because of this movie, for the most part.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like Robert Englund,
Oh, sure.
I remember seeing in like some sci-fi stuff like Galaxy of Terror and things like that.
And then, my first exposure to him before Nightmare was V on television.
V, yeah.
So
Yep.
he was one of the visitors, the nice one.
I know, yeah, that's what I remember. Like, when I found out he was Freddy, I'm like, no, but he's like the nice guy on V.
Actually, David Warner was originally supposed to play Freddy.
I've seen the makeup test. Have you seen the makeup
No.
test? Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, I'd kill for that.
If anybody listening on our internet podcast has Google image search on their computer, look up David Warner Freddy makeup test, and it's actually it would have been a way different character.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
His
he's
face
got
is way
that
different, but-
very iconic voice. A lot of you have heard him in animation and Star Trek and whatever. He's been in lots of stuff. You'd recognize his voice probably before you'd recognize
Sarek
him.
in Tron. He's the one in Tron. You know that movie you saw with that British guy? Yeah, that's David Warner.
That's David Warner.
Nice.
Which makes me wonder if no running in the hallways after tea.
Yeah. I don't know. David Warner's amazing. It actually would have been interesting if he had done some tests, like some readings or whatever, that there was recordings. I'd love to hear his take.
Yeah, I would too, because he's so proper British. So
yeah, but he can play he typically plays villains, actually.
Yeah,
like in Tron, I mean,
he's a very good villain.
He's a good villain in The Island with Michael Caine. That's a great movie. He's good in everything. David Warner is awesome.
Yeah, he's been doing some Doctor Who audios out in Britain, and I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, but him turning up, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe he's doing one of these. But, he's got to be getting close to 80 now. So
Yeah.
And John Saxon.
Voiceover is good for when you're...
And John Saxon, who was a veteran at the time.
He's got tons of stuff.
He's probably their guy, like their veteran actor guy. It's like, John Saxon from
He was probably the
Police
one
Story.
who was telling people, like, okay, like, he was probably had to corral young
And of
kids.
course, Johnny Depp comes out of this.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, so like, is it his first screen role?
This is a very early role. I don't know if he had like commercials or something. This is his first feature.
And he's hilarious in it. He's so baby-faced and like his little cut-off shirt. And
Yeah, remember like when boys had belly shirts and it was okay.
Now, I've got a 3-minute interview with Wes here talking about the origins of Nightmare on Elm Street. So let's run that, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street came out of a series of articles in the LA Times, if I'm not mistaken, starting in, I would guess, in the late 70s. They were, as I remember, about 3 to 6 months apart, and they were not correlated. That is, the LA Times, for whatever reasons, did not sort of catch that they had had a story about this before. They were all very small, and essentially they would go like some young man, usually of Southeast Asian origin, had been reported to have died in the middle of a nightmare. And the first two I clipped and kept without thinking too much about it, and then the third one had really the nub of a story in it. And basically this kid, and he had been he and his family had come out of the relocation camps in Southeast Asia, I think Cambodia, something like that. They were now in the United States, living someplace in California. And he had been troubled by severe nightmares. And they had they had increased in intensity to the point where he had told his family, they don't feel ordinary. And his family had tried to console him and tell him, we've come out of this terrible background. Nightmares are a normal part of your psychic trying to deal with that. But he increased in the sense of trying to say, this doesn't feel normal. It feels too real. And at a certain point, they had a doctor prescribe sleeping medicine for him, and his father insisted he take it. And it turned out later that he had taken the pills in under their supervision, and then as soon as they were away, he had spit them out. And they also discovered later that he had a coffee pot in his closet that he had kept with black coffee to stay awake at night. So this had gone on. He had decided at a certain point to stay awake and not sleep. And obviously the family thought he was having something like a nervous breakdown. And after about 3 days, he would be downstairs watching television all through the night. They went down and found him asleep on the couch, and the father brought him back to his bed. And the family, sort of felt like, thank God, he seems to be sleeping peacefully. And they all went to bed. And later in the night, they heard screaming and thrashing about. They ran into his room. And before they could get to him, he fell dead, stone dead. And the family had to have an autopsy done. And there was no heart failure. There was no sign of why he had died. That was a story. It was about a 10-inch story instead of the others were 3 or 4-inch stories. And I just read that. I said, this is like, it just evoked something very deep in me.
And yeah, that was Wes Craven with a pretty creepy story about Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street. And another interesting fact about Nightmare on Elm Street is Freddy Krueger was named after a school bully of his, Fred Krueger. And of course, he first uses a portion of that name for Last House on the Left, the lead villain Krug. So a lot of his experiences and just things he read about came into Nightmare, and I think this was a bit of a passion project for him. Well,
as what we were speaking about, like the origin of Nightmare, where the concept came from, has varied. Yeah,
and this clip I just aired, you may have seen other variations of it, short versions. IMDb tells a way different story. It's similar, but they leave out a lot of details. And I thought about reading the wiki, and I'm like, let's just hear it from the man himself. So,
but I mean, like, he's referred to it a few different ways, hasn't he? As in other interviews, or
well, I've seen him do truncated versions of that story, but essentially versions of the same thing. He does talk about the boy with the pot of coffee in his closet and that sort of thing. So yeah, cool, interesting stuff. Lots of big stars come out of this, and a
franchise that still exists.
And yet another
a horror villain that people know.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is right up there with Frankenstein and the Werewolf and the Mummy, and like, this is the new... it was part of the new pantheon of movie monsters, for me. Yeah. I think so.
It was probably the last successful franchise movie monster.
Yeah.
If you think of anybody that's been tried... Like, they've tried to do a new Freddy Krueger a number of times.
Oh, sure. There's always the new slasher monster thing. And, I think Jeepers Creepers was very good and possibly had the makings of a half-decent franchise.
But didn't
get there.
The Boogeyman, which actually is sort of a remake, but it tried.
Yeah, that was Sam Raimi.
Yeah,
the Boogeyman stuff.
The Tooth Fairy in
there were so many.
Remember Darkness Falls?
Yeah, there's so many attempts at trying to make that iconic that iconic villain, that character, that bit of danger that's your mind is going to expand. And just
I thought
really...
Adam Green got close with Victor Crowley in the Hatchet movies, but they didn't get the distribution, I think, to get that worldwide recognition out of those characters. But there's something really cool about that franchise in particular, and I don't know. I'd put it on the lower echelon with Jason and Freddy. He's standing in the back waving. We might get into more of that down the road, but I know Jeff didn't like that franchise, and I quite like it.
We're talking back like to the 80s. Like right now, you've got a saturation of all types of media.
Yeah, I think the closest
can't really break through and be distinctive.
Yeah, I think the most successful was obviously the Saw franchise, which he's not a movie monster per se, but he's certainly monstrous in his intention. So that was easily the most successful.
Yeah, Jigsaw probably has been the most successful since then.
Yeah, but
still not as like.
And we got new franchises like Insidious and stuff kicking up, but they're a very different type of horror movie. They're these new ghost movie franchises that seem to be popping up at the moment.
Not quite the same deal.
The slasher genre is almost gone again. I mean, it had a slight revival with the torture porn era that came and went.
Saw.
I mean, Saw was easily the king of that.
Yeah, Saw and anything Eli Roth was doing.
Eli Roth,
Hostel,
The Collector and the Collection, which I thought were really great.
Not to be confused with The Bone Collector, totally different movie.
No, which is a good movie, but it's not a horror movie. It's a thriller.
And with The Collector and the Collection, I saw The Collection, didn't know The Collector was a movie until afterwards.
Yeah, I've kind of been waiting because I can't find The Collector anywhere. So I haven't watched it. I even met that guy. At one of our local horror cons.
I watched it on Netflix just prior for them taking it off. Now they only have the collection on it. At least it might be different in whatever region you're listening from, but in Canada on Netflix they've only got the collection. Shame on you.
Same in the American one as well.
So, okay.
Yeah, it's just not on there. I don't know. Distribution's funny, I guess.
It is.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird that they would not have the other one on because they're both excellent movies.
We actually could probably do an entire podcast, not even episode, but series on Nightmare on Elm Street. So maybe we should save it for later.
I think we're kind of done with that for now because there's definitely a lot more to talk about, and there's a whole other retrospective and remake comparisons and the whole bit. Now, from 1984, he spends the next 4 years doing some television. Chiller. Some episodes of Twilight Zone. He did 5 episodes of Twilight Zone, and the most interesting one on this list is Disneyland.
But what is Disneyland? He did an episode called Case Busters.
Yeah, I think it was some sort of anthology thing. I honestly don't remember it.
I think it's a child anthology. Like it's not.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the one. Like it's Goosebumps, but not scary. You know, like Goosebumps is sort of an anthology of stories for children, and I think Disneyland is not quite like that. It's sort of just like children's stories.
I've been to Disneyland several times, and the lines are very scary.
They're scary,
and so are those price tags at the door.
Anything in a costume, frightening.
Now, after the little stint at TV, and I'm going to revisit those 80s Twilight Zone episodes again, now that I know he did them. I love watching anthology shows like that. Like even the first Twilight Zone, or any cartoon from the 80s, you watch this and you see all these huge names doing little episode writing or directing.
Because they weren't
voice
then.
Work. It's interesting to see. And I always thought that there was this stigma with television. Like if you did movies or you made it to the movies, that was the big time.
Yeah.
And it was like
you never went back.
You were like on your way out if you went into TV after.
No.
And now it's like
it's
the
sort of
opposite
opposite
now. Like everything is TV. Like on the radio recently. Yeah, I still listen to the radio. Laserdiscs, people. There's 3 or 4 television shows coming out that have A-list actors.
Oh, for sure.
Like Academy Award-winning actor
the
Tim
stigma
Robbins,
of television has definitely changed.
Well,
so
part of the
different.
stigma of television that's gone is because it's not...
It used to be this, you're a TV actor, you're a movie actor. It's not really that way anymore,
and you work
I'm certainly
your way
glad
up to
for that.
Movies, where now it's like, you've made it in the movies, now we'll let you do television.
Well,
it's
so
very... it's changed
I think I see
a lot.
the point of, like, okay, remember how, like, with TV, when it was movies were big, and they're like, we'll put everything into movies, and TV, you're just churning out stuff. Now, movies, we're churning out stuff, churning out anything we think might make money, and TV, it's like, no, we're going to do quality here, and that's what we're going to concentrate on.
I think it's how people consume media now, is why it's going back to television.
People want to be at home.
Well, it's not even that people want to be home; it's people don't have the attention span.
Well,
to sit in a
the
movie. Like,
cinemas are kind of starting to price people out.
They are pricing people
But-
out. The movie's an expensive night out. I remember, to go back to Adrienne Barbeau's interview on the Swamp Thing Blu-ray, because it's fresh in my mind. She was saying how she was disappointed with the film and how she wouldn't recommend people spend $6 to go and see it in whatever year, that was 1982 or whatever, right? And it's funny now because, like, you know, you go and just a theater seat's like almost $20, and if you go see a 3D thing, anything they can make 3D is 3D.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, let's get a combo that maybe we can share another $25. Like,
sometimes it's time. Like,
dinner and a
sometimes don't have
movie, it's too expensive
to spend 90 minutes, 2 hours on a film, but I can watch 20 minutes of an episode of something.
Yeah.
Though I don't. Admittedly, I don't watch a lot of television, but
I don't watch a lot of live television. Like, I will buy box sets and things like that, and run through a series on Netflix, and that's kind of and that's a different change in consuming media as well. It's
but I wonder
we can
why
watch
things have
when we
turned that
want,
way.
why we want, and what we want. So
I wonder if the on-demand mentality of media consumption has lent it that way. Like, why was Daredevil a TV show? And not a movie, right? Why is Luke Cage a TV show? Why was Gotham not a movie? It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's probably some dude with a calculator in a boardroom somewhere that probably has a better answer to that question.
True.
But
so the next film after the TV is a movie called Deadly Friend.
I'm kind of wondering why he did it so much television. Especially coming hot off of Nightmare, huge successful movie for New Line Cinema. I don't know if there was.
Keep working.
You do got to keep working, but do you think maybe there was some difficulty with Bob Shea that had him? Maybe that made it difficult for him to get
think so.
work.
I remember seeing
theatrically
a quote or an interview,
or he
by
just
Wes
wanted
Craven.
to do something different.
Well, I think Wes Craven said, and I'm going to horribly paraphrase because I don't take notes apparently, but that if you want to be into the industry, you get your foot in your door and you do the job. Like, I mean, he was like an assistant at whatever production house, and that got him in the door. And that he had said something to the effect of, when a movie's done and it's come out and the box office is over, there's no more 16-hour days and the phone doesn't ring anymore, and it's like you don't exist now.
Right.
And so maybe, especially in the 80s, you keep doing it, you keep working.
Yeah, like, I think it's like conceptually how you have like the next hot thing, and like nowadays, like, you'll have a director who might do something and the next he's doing Guardians of the Galaxy. That wasn't the 80s. You would do something and then the studio was like, okay, well, maybe this will profit. And then they won't come knocking on your door and go ramming you down because they don't know what you can do yet. You have to prove yourself a number of times probably before they would give you stuff.
Yeah, you wouldn't go from a demon penis in Romeo and Juliet to a talking raccoon for Marvel in a direct crossway. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
So Deadly Friend, I've never seen this movie except for one scene.
I didn't even write that movie down. I thought I wrote everything down, and I don't even have that on my list.
There's this scene. And I'm just going to show it to these guys on a GIF on my phone. But if you want to just see the only good part, anyone ever talks about Deadly Friend, Google Deadly Friend basketball GIF, and it will change your life. I'm going to show it to Trish right now. Are you ready?
Oh, is this?
Okay.
Is this
I've
the
heard of this.
smashing?
I've seen the smashing head.
I have seen this clip as well. They smashed the head with the basketball.
That's where it's from.
That's where it's
I
from.
never knew where that was from.
Yeah, and actually,
I may have actually seen this movie.
Someone had sent me that on social media, and was
I've at least seen it.
I've never seen Deadly Friend. They're like, oh, is that what this is from?
Yeah, I've at least seen that clip in a recent horror documentary. I can't remember if I've actually seen this movie, but I do recall having seen that clip before, so I may have watched it in passing or parts of it at some point.
I feel like aside from that, it's rather probably fairly forgettable because no one brings it up.
Yeah,
that and Deadly Blessing to me are like the ones we don't talk about.
Oh yeah, no, they're not.
until we get
ones.
to whatever year Cursed came out. But
well, there you go.
But the one after that actually is one of my favorites.
The Serpent in the Rainbow.
I love the Serpent in the Rainbow.
It was funny. I was trying to remember the movie, and every time it was a movie I used to get confused with another movie around the same time, and that was Lair of the White Worm.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
And in my mind, I'm thinking different actors, and then I'm researching for this show, and I'm like, Oh, that's not the movie I remembered.
No.
And I'm like, oh, this is the one with the Haitian zombies. And
when you said
stuff.
Wes Craven, I specifically was going
Yeah.
like, I gotta watch this movie because it just never happened for me.
I was trying to rewatch it before this show.
Bill Pullman's in it.
That's right.
I love me a young Bill Pullman.
Yeah,
I do.
He's fantastic. He's good in everything. But I really love this movie. It was like kind of a callback to the original zombie movies before
For sure.
Romero kind of reinvented it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all based in witchcraft and voodoo.
Well, it's based in voodoo, and like it does go with like the actual voodoo concept. Like what a zombie is a zombie is a servant somebody has raised from the
chemical
dead.
zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chemical zombie. Yeah, where you're like under. It's almost like a hypnosis, chemical-induced hypnosis or whatever. It's just a really fun. It's as close to an action movie as he's done since Swamp Thing, I would say.
Yeah,
There's a lot of like Indiana Jonesing in this movie, and the final showdown with the voodoo priest guy, who I can't remember who it was played by. I'm looking in here. I think Paul Winfield was maybe him, but
no, Paul Winfield was the good voodoo guy. That was his buddy.
So it was Zakes Moke or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, there's a kind of a reoccurring theme, and it'll happen in a few other ones past this, is...
Dreams.
Dreams, the nature of reality. He's constantly exploring the nature of reality and the disconnect from reality, because Pullman's constantly getting confused between reality and in that film.
And there's people, the zombies, that's part of the point of the film, is like he says, the bad guy is like, I'll send the zombies to you in your sleep.
Yeah.
And he's like, did you dream about me? I know, because I was there. Like, it's about invading people's dreams when they're vulnerable.
Yeah, and this disconnect of reality is a theme through many of his movies.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that, because he does have a psychology degree, and I think he's very fascinated with that and how we process and perceive reality.
Yeah. Like it's yeah, because like I mean we've all had that dream where like, oh my god, it was like so freaking real, like just I thought it was a thing. Or you've woken up. Have you ever woken up like just absolutely furious at a friend of yours for something they did in your dream and you shouldn't be?
I've been yes, and I've also had people be mad at me for that very reason as well.
Yeah.
You can't talk to me today. Why? Because something you did in my dream.
Because you stole my horse, damn it.
Yeah, I don't. It's like
you killed my unicorn.
Do anything?
You know what you did, and then you just walk away.
You know what you did.
Or you sometimes wake up, or you've woke up in the morning and like something has happened in a dream, but you just carry with you like this, this harsh feeling all day, and you can't really describe it.
Yeah.
And it just sticks with you.
Or I feel like Serpent is one of those Wes Craven movies that people forget he did.
It is
so solid. It's like one of those ones where it's not.
I think a movie that everybody's aware is out there. It's a classic, I think, for most people, but it's not something.
It's not gory horror.
Yeah, when you watch it, you don't instantly associate it with something that Craven would normally do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not your simple gory horror.
Yeah, and he was at points in his career was trying to walk away from horror. It always dragged him back,
which I think that's why he did like some of that Disney one. Like, 'cause, I mean, and he's a competent director. Like a Serpent and the Rainbow, that's the thing. Like, it's not your slasher horror movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done.
I mean, the scariest thing he ever did was Music of the Heart, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Meryl Streep comes at you in your dreams.
Oh, well, we'll get there.
Oh, but there's one part in Serpent and the Rainbow that I just had to mention because it just stuck with me. There's at one point when at the very beginning of the film, when Bill Pullman's like given a drug by a shaman because the shaman has to show him something, and so he finds a spirit animal, which is a jaguar. But then at another point, like he's pulled into the ground, and these hands are pulling him down and pulling him down. Now, when you see that in the Serpent and the Rainbow, it's terrifying. But when you see it in Labyrinth, it's not so bad.
Less terrifying, yeah.
Jennifer Connelly's like, oh, okay.
Watch those hands.
Jennifer Connelly should be screaming her head off. It's terrifying.
Yeah, but she's in a dreamlike state that whole movie, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell. And she never blinks.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, watch the movie. She never blinks.
It's a very Muppety version of Alice in Wonderland, which in itself is a kind of a
It's really
creepy
just a Muppet
movie.
version of Serpent and the Rainbow. That's what we're getting.
There, yeah, well,
Yeah, it's a Muppet version of Serpent and the Rainbow because she's taking heads and moving heads around with animals and There's a lot of stuff happening there.
Yeah.
Ooh, is that a movie we're gonna do? Is Serpent in the
Probably.
Rainbow and Labyrinth together?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do a mashup.
I believe. Yeah, I would say now that we've discussed it, that
mashups?
Labyrinth was inspired by, or Serpent in the Rainbow was inspired by Labyrinth, because I can't remember which one came first.
I think so. No, I think Serpent. All right, Jeff's getting on IMDb
I'm
while
IMDb
we
again.
discover the truth of who swiped who. But yeah, that opening
Labyrinth was
scene's
first.
okay. Labyrinth was first.
Okay, so they used that in Serpent in the Rainbow.
Yeah.
So Wes Craven is a Muppet fan.
You betcha.
Who isn't, though?
I know.
Well,
really.
true enough. Apparently, Million Moms.
Well, New Muppets is terrible.
I haven't. I didn't watch the pilot last week. I'm sorry. I do like Muppets, but I kind of want to like that they're doing something. But
Don't.
Everybody's given me the same thing about that.
Somebody
hear-
did something terrible, and now we're all paying for it.
So. Okay. Well, there's always those other movies that they did. So
Muppet Treasure Island.
that's right.
Muppet Christmas Carol. Awesome.
So, after Serpent in the Rainbow, one of my favorites and probably the most bonkers movie that
haven't
I
seen it,
can
still
think
have to
of on
see it.
this list. There are probably a few other ones that might be up there with it, but Shocker is absolutely bonkers crazy. And this is about serial killer Horace Pinker, who's got a limp, so he is the most prolific serial killer who you could probably run away from, but because he's got like one dead leg, but for some reason he still catches everybody.
Hey, every zombie movie, people are eventually got.
Yeah. And oh god, he gets fried. He prays to electric gods and becomes an electric based being in and of himself. The protagonist turns out to be his real life son. Oh, it's bonkers crazy. His girlfriend gets murdered by Horace to become some angelic being that protects. and this is Peter Berg playing the main character, best known for Battleship.
Yeah, and Horace Pinker is played by.
Mitch Pileggi.
There you go, X-Files.
Yeah, you just want
I'd like to have
Scully.
I'd
and
like to
Mulder
actually
come
have Skinner
this.
investigate that, and it turns out to be like his long lost brother or something.
I would love to see that.
Oh, it's even got Ted Raimi and Heather Langenkamp,
Oh, there's a lot of cameos in here
His
from
daughter?
Friends.
Jessica Craven.
I love how they put Heather
Yeah.
Langenkamp as victim. That's what they have for IMDb.
I just watched
Just
it, and
victim.
honestly, I still didn't see it. I'm not sure where it was, but Horace Pinker does kill a lot of people. And at one point, they dive into the television in this battle through
Space and time.
Well, no, it's they're battling through news programs and World War II documentaries, and this thing is bonkers weird. Like, he's trying to take some of the campiness that Freddy was become known for and create his own thing with it. Obviously didn't work because we never got a Shocker 2, but
No.
I like this thing. It's still batshit nuts crazy, but I still think it's an amazing movie nonetheless. It is a fun
It is
watch.
an awesome heavy metal soundtrack.
It had a
Yeah.
great soundtrack, great music in there. Alice Cooper's on there.
Megadeth.
Megadeth,
There's a
yeah.
bunch. Yeah, I was listening to
Some
it before
great,
this
yeah.
podcast.
There you go.
Wes Craven do some great bonkers stuff. Like,
And
You
he
don't
does.
have-
He's not afraid to go in some weird territory. Like, you want something like Last House on the Left, which is super heavy and hard to watch. And,
Yeah.
I mean, they even softened it up on the remake because it's so brutal.
for
And then
sure.
he throws these comedy cops in there, which, if anything, just makes you feel
makes you more
unhinged.
Yeah.
With that, and it's very unsettling.
Well, the
seeing
comedy
these cops.
Cops are probably like reminding you that if like something like this were to happen to you, that everyone's incompetent and no one is there to help you, and
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
it's an isolation.
There's a
technique, I
person. There's definitely a point to it, and it does give you a moment away from the heaviness of it all. But if anything, it adds to that disturbing tone of the entire
Yeah.
film, and just unsettles you that much more. So he was never afraid to mix his genres and whatever else he was drinking at the time.
Oh my god.
So yeah, batshit crazy movie. And I don't know if anybody's seen the TV movie Night Visions, because that was his next one after Shocker. And of course, Jeff's favorite, and many of my friends' favorite.
I like it
People
too.
Under the Stairs.
Really
honestly, my first watch on that, I don't think I really got it, but I wasn't paying too much attention to it. And then after later reflection and watching it, I'm like, oh, this is actually a really, really good movie, and one of his most well-reviewed movies. It's a fun movie, but disturbing again.
I mean, it's dark on many levels.
Yeah.
The thing with this movie that I think resonates the most with me is it came out in 91, so I would have seen it by the time it hit video, say 92 or 93.
Right.
So, or no, on TV. Yeah, so a year or two later. So I would have been 12 or 13. So this is the first Craven movie that has a child lead.
Yeah.
So then, like a lot of, like we talked about this with the stuff with the child character, is it's, as you, because horror movies are marketed to kids, you find that child character that you can like imprint yourself upon, and you're more connected with the movie, and that's maybe why it resonated so well with me, is because the kid in this, he has a nickname, what's his name?
Fool,
yeah, Fool, played by Brandon Adams, who I think went on to do nothing. He was like same age as me, so it was like it totally made sense.
Do you think this was maybe in answer to the success of the Goonies? There were several those kind of movies. I mean,
I don't know,
People Under the Stairs is certainly darker than those movies, and it does seem to be fairly late to that game. But it's
those movies were mid '80s.
Yeah, like Goonies was '85.
Yeah, 86
and
or 87.
Monster Squad was 86, 87. Yeah.
Monster Squad was always my favorite. Less screaming. I watched Goonies recently with my friend's 9-year-old, and it's a screaming. It's for an hour and a half. It's just children screaming. If I wanted to listen to that, I would just have kids. I really love this movie. It's super dark while being lighthearted.
Yeah.
There's like this weird
the couple.
Stockholm syndrome-y relationship between the daughter and Roach, played by Sean Whalen, who is an awesome dude. I went out and got drunk with him and did karaoke. True story.
Oh, really?
Early Ving Rhames role?
Early Ving Rhames, as a complete dirtbag.
He was,
This super creepy couple that they break into the house. And
my god, oh my god.
Yeah, and you find out later that they're brother and sister. And
yes.
Yeah, it's twisted on a lot of levels.
There's
every time I watch this movie, I pick up things that I didn't understand or didn't catch the first time through.
And that was, I think, my first watch. Is like I didn't get a lot of it.
No,
I was too young, I think, on that one.
Like when I was young, I think I got the point. Like I was more concentrated on the child and like the people behind, like Sean Roach, because I'm like, oh yay, like I liked him, and I was fascinated with that story. And then when I got older and watched it, and I kind of started focusing more on the couple. Brother and sister, there's some like weird gimp crap going on.
You look at modern movies now, they never have the balls to make something like this or Hills or Last House on the Left. Like they just wouldn't be made now.
No,
definitely not. And I also always got the impression with that couple that they were cannibals. They never said it, but I feel like, because when they're eating dinner and he's spitting the buckshot out.
Oh yeah.
And you know he'll whip out a gun at
in any moment to like shoot at these people.
And like, why are you keeping all those kids in the basement? Maybe, and there's a lot of like stripped skeletons down there, and it's super dark. I can't believe my parents let me watch that movie, but it's really, and even Roach, the character Roach, is like down there with the cannibal children, and you're like, oh yeah, it's cool. We're all friends now, and it's like, no, that guy is fucked up. I don't know. It's so good. There's so many layers to it in that movie, and I think a lot of Craven's earlier stuff is fairly one-dimensional, and this one just delves deep. And maybe it comes off as a little campy now. We just recently watched it. I'll plug for Cody's sake. Night Terrors Film Society in Calgary here screened it at the theater, so I got to see it on the big screen because I, was 10 when it came out. I wasn't allowed, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was super cool to see it on the big screen again, especially getting to meet Sean Whalen in person and talk about working with Wes and everybody says, like Sean told me in person, but and all the interviews you read, and there was a retrospective episode of a show called Scream where a bunch of his actors had come and talked about it, and everybody says just like a class act and what a gentleman he is, and John Carpenter said the same thing.
Well, that's one thing. In all of his interviews, he's very articulate, and I think he was probably the smartest man in horror.
Yeah,
for sure.
In many regards,
and a nice guy director.
Yeah.
When the guy who plays Jude in Swamp Thing had an interview,
liked him,
and he said that he didn't know that people in movies were like that. Were like Wes Craven.
Yeah.
He was just like this really brilliant, smart guy. He's no Kubrick or Hitchcock, who's just like a raging asshole on set.
Yeah.
And it's their sheer brilliance in box office that keeps them coming back.
Well, I think that's the
he
thing.
had everything.
Like
Yeah.
Craven could get the performance out of somebody without having to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't need to.
Thankfully, that's something that's changed too, and it's thanks to guys like Wes Craven who are fans of other filmmakers, and these are people who treat people like people now. The old guard's getting kind of swept away, and if you're an asshole on set, your career goes bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're an actor or a director. I mean, you still have
raging
to deliver
dickheads,
and everything else, and there's egos that this business it creates and engenders big egos, and it's a strong person who can temper that.
Yeah. Somebody who even the person like you're in charge, and you've got some winners on your hands, and you can still be that person who's like, oh, yeah, I'm in charge, but I'm not going to be a dick about it.
Yeah. So people under the stairs, and then he goes to television again and directs an episode for Nightmare Cafe, which I barely remember. I remember being really excited for this show, and I seem to remember watching the pilot for it, and maybe that was all that actually aired, because I know it did not last long. And
6 episodes.
Yeah, I knew it didn't even get a full season. I remember in a blink of an eye it was gone.
To be fair, it might have been ambitious, because even at that time frame, you couldn't do that much on television.
No, like horror on TV, especially back then, was a real rarity, and usually it was relegated to TV movies if it happened at all.
For sure.
Usually it was features ported over to TV.
Yep. Also edited.
The one episode that he wrote starred Robert Englund. Shockingly,
I do remember that episode.
Thank you, IMDb.
So yeah, a tip of the hat to the premature death of Nightmare Cafe, because I think there was a good idea there that was probably a decade or more too early.
And that does happen with a lot of things. Like, you can bring it back.
Have been around the same time as the Friday the 13th TV show, and
yes, it would have actually. Yeah,
I think so.
They were trying to bring back the glory days of
And if memory serves, it was NBC's show.
Well, no, Tales from the Crypt was at the same time.
Yeah,
but Tales from the Crypt was on cable, so Tales from the Crypt could do more.
And
Friday the 13th was on regular television.
Well, it was relegated to syndication only, and I mean, up here anyway, the only way you could see it was 2 a.m.
Yeah. Even then, it wasn't.
Oh no, it was terrible.
I remember setting the VCR.
Guys, just remember 3 seasons.
Yeah, still, that doesn't mean it's
Jason
good.
in a single episode.
That doesn't mean it's good. 3 seasons doesn't mean it's good,
and
guys.
that's actually something they're talking about, is a new Friday 13th television series. This one will have Jason. So
not Spookity Antiques.
Well, not to say that those won't be there either, but I had not heard of any antique dealers in this series. And if they show up, I'm sure they're going to be slaughtered.
See, the worst part is they marketed as Friday the 13th, and that kind of peeved me. They did that, but the thought of actually doing cursed and spooky antiques, there's stuff you could do with that, but they couldn't figure it out.
Sure, yeah.
Budgetary restraints maybe, or something, who knows.
No, bad writing.
And speaking of nightmares, we go to the new Nightmare, and he revisits his his first child, Freddy Krueger. And this one was a little different from what we'd got through those 6 prior movies.
From what we got with most anything.
They step out of the New Line continuity and try to bring it forth into somewhat reality. Freddy is become this demonic entity, has at least taken on the persona of the Freddy Krueger character, and is trying to scrape and claw its way into reality now that the series is over.
Yeah, given life because of the long-standing cult following. And
which is I think is a great idea. It's a terrifying idea. You think about public consciousness, and like, well, Jesus, would we create just with our pure thought and energy of belief in these characters? Freddy would be alive, Jason would be alive. I'm like, good God.
Look at overall belief in other things.
At the same time, maybe Superman would be flying around
mythology,
too,
deities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is. In a way, it's this
Like,
new mythology, right?
It's pretty high concept, and
It is.
It flirts with the fourth wall. Never really breaks it.
It scrapes it.
Never really breaks it, but it flirts with it. And I think
Freddy scrapes his claws across it.
Yeah.
I can't think of too much prior to this that ever did that. I'm sure there's a few things.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's done it before or since. Not to say that it hasn't, but it was a really unique idea where Heather Langenkamp comes back playing herself.
Yeah.
And, fictional husband,
With her
fictional
family.
child. They weren't her actual family, but, Robert Englund's in there as himself. Wes Craven's there as
John
himself.
Saxon.
John Saxon is there as himself. And, they're being haunted by this. It's starting to bubble to the surface during this movie, and getting ominous phone calls and there's little things haunting these people's lives, and is mainly centered around Heather, and then it really breaks the barrier as they become their characters again near the end.
Yeah. And it also has like kind of the concept where it's not Heather was the one who played Nancy, so Heather is the one who has to stop the demonic entity in reality because she played the fictional version.
Yeah. And this was the first time I think they made Freddy frightening again.
Yes.
For a long time.
Makes everybody frightening.
and the coat.
Leather Pants is frightening for so many reasons.
Painfully 90s.
I'm not saying there's not some dated stuff in there, but at the time they really tried to bring it back.
They were trying to revamp him, and he should have been kept dirty
that was
and
the
unpleasant.
90s was extreme. I was surprised he wasn't wearing sunglasses.
He wore a lot of sunglasses.
I remember the 90s. It was a lot of synthetics, so that's what it looked like.
Yeah, I think he was wearing sunglasses on that album.
He was possibly the most sinister he has looked.
I think
until
so,
we get to the Freddy vs. Jason, where I think he was the most demonic looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And burst through the dock.
But they did embrace the camp again in that movie, whereas this one really was just trying to get back to what made that first one work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, because it was so intense and dark, he just tried to do a horror comedy, and it horribly failed, and everybody forgets about this movie.
Oh, God. And this was one of the contractual obligations of Eddie Murphy. I don't remember what studio who was contracted to at the time, but he had a multiple picture deal, and he wrote, produced, and starred in Vampire in Brooklyn, and poor Wes Craven had to do the rest of the work.
Poor Angela Bassett.
This movie, I kind of wanted to rewatch it prior to this. I didn't have time, but
I have never watched it.
When I did read about it, it all started rushing back into my brain, and it is not funny at all. It is really quite dark for something that is obviously meant to be a comedy.
Well, I had read that Eddie Murphy didn't want to do a comedy role with this. He wanted to play serious, and because it was written with comedy elements, and Wes Craven basically said that Eddie Murphy was impossible to work with.
Well, you look at it, at that point, he'd done Beverly Hills Cop and a whole bunch of stuff. So he was the guy at the time, and this was probably the first real bomb for Eddie.
But here's the deal. I'm sorry. If you've got a script that says Vampire in Brooklyn, you're not thinking hard-hitting drama.
No, yeah.
I'm terribly sorry, but you're really not.
That is not exactly a title that invokes horror fans to come out in droves.
No.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Eddie Murphy's filmography here post Vampire in Brooklyn, and
it's not good.
This is the catalyst. Yeah,
this really was. Yeah,
part of it was because it was the catalyst, and I think it was also the experience that people had making it with him. I think it was just the experience fans had watching it. It didn't do him any favors.
It's an ugly movie at least in my memory. I remember watching it and go, "Oh, wow, what the hell is this?" Yeah, it's a tough movie to even sit and watch from start to finish. And honestly, I just tell everybody to give this one a pass. Eddie Murphy certainly got better in his resume, and we know Wes does as well. Yeah. Although he might still recommend it over Hills Have Eyes too.
This is probably the first weak one since Swamp Thing in '82. So
yeah,
he's
I
had a
think
pretty
it's
good, solid run.
Yeah, I think that's his problem.
Swamp Thing
this
is better than this.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, Swamp Thing wasn't exactly a box office smash or anything.
No,
But still darn.
Actually, that
but
was
still enjoyable. I still stand by that.
It did okay. But he did have that quiet stretch, Invitation to Hell and Hills Have Eyes too. That was a bit of a quiet start to what turned out to be an incredible year. With Nightmare on Elm Street. So.
Well, and then the next year after Vampire in Brooklyn, she recreates the slasher fourth dimension.
Yeah, this very successful teaming with Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Successful.
Yeah.
Talk about inserting young stars.
Yeah, and creates another successful franchise. And this, in the order of the movies, these were her, Scream 1, 2, 3, and 4 are his most successful films.
Yeah.
1,
and
2, 3,
also
and 4.
big enough to inspire the spoofs in like various areas of the series.
Scary movies.
Big enough that the references are all understood.
The original title for Scream was Scary Movie, and that's where the Scary Movie
got their
took
title.
Yeah, and
what's funny talking about the references from Scream, because Scream is built on references
from other movies.
Genre that I would say Wes helped redefine.
Again, scraping that wall of reality just a bit and really acknowledging it.
They were doing in Scream what we were all yelling at the TV in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Because it seems, especially zombie movies are notorious for this, that no one's ever watched a movie in their entire life in any movie where something horrible happens.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And this one is no, we've all seen the movies. We know exactly what we should be doing, and we're doing it. And then he goes all M. Night Shyamalan at the end of it or whatever, but...
Hey, I still think that's fine.
I like Scream 4, but he was definitely trying something a little different.
Oh, 4 went a different way.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I loved the soundtrack.
I did like it, yeah. I did like it a lot. But and I applauded some of the choices he made on it. I don't know if that was the way most people wanted it to go, and it certainly didn't knock the box office.
But the first Scream, fantastic.
Absolutely.
I still remember that part from
movies,
the
three's
the
hard
credits.
to watch.
Yeah, but I still remember that one line from the trailer where she's like, "Well, some big boob woman runs up the stairs as opposed to out the front door like she should." It's insulting.
He brought a big star in for a very small part, and it in a way, the Scream movies feel like Batman 66 to me. Let's bring in a big star for a minor part to get killed off. And,
Drew in the beginning.
Yeah, and a lot of those the young actors in those movies went on to pretty big things.
Skeet Ulrich, Nev Campbell, Rose McGowan, Matthew Lillard. Henry Winkler was the principal.
Yeah. Don't forget David Arquette.
And Courtney Cox.
He's been skirting the edge of fame for decades.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at that and there's Timothy Olyphant, and there's so many actors, and we're still forgetting some. That's how many are in this. It is just a who's who of those now hot actors that are in their 30s now. It's kind of incredible to go back to watch those and say, you're a star, you're a star, you're a star, you're a star, you're a star. And that just speaks to Wes and how good of casting and his crew when they're casting these movies.
Liev Schreiber, Cotton Weary.
That's right.
There you go. Everybody's
in this movie. So Scream 1996, Scream 2 on 97, and then 99 Music of the Heart.
Again, we were just I'm pretty sure sometimes as a director, if you can be the foremost horror one and you want to do something different.
I didn't
honestly
know
Meryl Streep.
Oh,
what are you going to do?
Honestly, if you get a chance to direct Meryl Streep, you're at least guaranteed some acknowledgement because she's going to get nominated for an Oscar.
For sure.
Well, she might, and she's not going to win it, but
this is the only movie in his entire career that had an Academy nomination, and I've never seen it.
I have not either.
Which I will say, I have to say, for writing, some of his movies are going to beat out some Academy.
I didn't know this. It's not the kind of movie I'm attracted to. I certainly was unaware it was a Wes Craven movie at all. As much as I like Meryl Streep.
Yeah, who knew? But he does say that you just keep working, and he tries to get away from horror here and there, and maybe that was his try, and then he just jumps right back in with a barrage of horror movies up until his untimely death.
Yeah. So yeah, right after that was Scream 3 with Jay and Silent Bob.
FYI,
with a nice cameo in that one.
I'm going to bring this in Music of the Heart.
Yeah.
Angela Bassett, who was in Vampire in Brooklyn, is in Music of the Heart.
Oh, nice.
So-
Always recycling.
Yeah, but I'm like going, that tells you something. Is like, he's probably like, Angela, come on, I'll bring you
I
into Meryl.
owe you. I owe you for that.
Come, let's do something with Meryl. This will be fine.
So yeah, Scream 3, and that kind of put the Scream franchise to bed for a little while. Him and Kevin Williamson, actually, there was a good break in his directing career. He didn't do anything for another 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably producing and writing. There's, he was involved in a lot of films on the producing side of things. Dracula 2000, a lot,
And
John
a lot
Carpenter,
of stuff.
a lot
It's
of
years
other
in
stuff.
between
Sure.
idea and execution.
Sure, and then 2005, he had a couple of movies. Cursed, which actually started shooting right on Scream 3 and kept getting shoved back. He had... I'd say, I don't know percentage-wise exactly, but he had most of that movie shot. Because of certain delays, actors became unavailable, and he had to recast parts and kill some parts entirely and reshoot all those scenes all over again. So he essentially shot, with all the amount of footage they shot for that film, they could have edited 4 movies.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it does show up on screen. This was one of the one I did watch prior to this show, and
Another who's who in it.
I love werewolves, and there aren't a lot of good werewolf movies.
That's true. This came after Ginger Snaps, right? Way after.
Yeah, Ginger Snaps.
Way after.
Ginger
It always
Snaps
kinda
was
reminded me of
97.
It was trying to be Ginger Snaps, but because of
Honestly, it watches a lot like Scream.
Really?
Like the formula's there.
Yeah, it's not.
haven't
It's a
watched
lot.
it in a
It's a
while.
lot.
A lot of
misdirects.
misdirection. Yeah, a lot of misdirects. Who's the werewolf kind of guy? And it turns out everybody. Everybody's a fucking werewolf in this movie.
It's amazing to see some of the people that are in this
Stars
movie.
Christina Ricci, right?
That's the Christina Ricci. Yeah.
Yeah. Christina Ricci got, or maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. It's got Jesse Eisenberg in it.
Yeah. No, Eisenberg. Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg, and it's got Judy Greer, Nick Offerman.
Everybody's in that movie.
Yeah, and well, actually, I wish I had my notes handy for who was originally in that movie, because there were a lot of names in that.
It is a
movie.
very long
It was
IMDb list, guys.
it was intended to be the next big thing, and
wasn't.
it wasn't. When you start regurgitating your formula multiple times, people pick up on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found actually both the movies released this year. I only watched once and found forgettable because Red Eye is the next one.
Yeah, Red Eye, I remember seeing in the theater, and it got good reviews.
I remember hearing a lot about it.
Yeah, I quite liked Red Eye. It's fairly quick paced and unrelenting. It's just a strong thriller. It's not really a horror movie per se.
No, I would say it's a thriller for sure.
Yeah.
I did like Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
In that,
Oh,
he's
he's
coming.
awesome.
Yeah, he kind of he came in a year before with 28 Days
Yeah,
Later.
28 Days, and I think
Yes.
that, he was around for a while, but North American audiences were certainly introduced to him via 28 Days.
28
Yeah,
Days Later.
so that's why I
Yeah.
watched this movie. I actually didn't realize it was a Wes Craven movie, but I just Cillian Murphy was in it, so we went out. I think we saw it in the theater, and it is okay. It's one of those once you get to the end with the
It's not
ending, it's not rewatchable.
It's not a rewatchable movie. I remember seeing it. I'm like, I really enjoyed that. I would never rewatch it. It's just once you've gone through it, any kind of surprises or whatever. It's just one of those movies.
It's with a lot of thrillers.
Yeah.
A lot of thrillers, you're like, oh,
watch
I
it
know
once.
what's happening.
Yeah, you watch it once and you're good. It's strong for what it was, but it's not. Watch Nightmare for the 20th time kind of thing.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
thing, even with Scream, I know what's going to happen, but I enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
I am always happy to take that ride.
For sure.
Was that one of the first things that Rachel McAdams was really big in?
It was probably the one I first.
I think it was around the Notebook time, wasn't it?
It was still early in her career.
Mean Girls was 2004.
Yeah, honestly, it was the first one
2003.
I kind of became aware of her name. I'd seen her and stuff, but I really didn't know who she was at that point.
Yeah, it must have been 2003, 2004, because I remember I was flying to Australia, and Mean Girls was on every flight that year, at least 4 times. Every single airline had that movie. and that was the best option you had.
I can't imagine that they would run red eye on a plane. Just saying.
No, this is definitely prior to Red Eye. I just remember it was a lot of Mean Girls all the time. Either that or an Olsen Twins movie, and I'm like, I'm watching Mean Girls again. This is just going to happen. I just remember that because on every flight, Mean Girls was my option.
So that's your airplane horror story. You would have preferred the guy on Red Eye.
If I write a movie, that's going to be the thing. Mean Girls is the only one that's working.
Now, I don't imagine anybody say he did a part of a short on a French film. It was a French anthology film. I haven't seen it. I don't know what he did for it. So
28 writers, 22 directors.
Yeah, so
he wrote and directed in it. But
his
who knows?
yeah, it was.
I think
just
it's like an anthology one.
Yeah, it was definitely a small sequence. I'm guessing not much more than 10 minutes with that amount of directors.
I think it's the idea behind it is like those anthologies, like kind of love. Actually, there's little stories all around Paris.
And anybody's like, well, what movie are you talking about? Well, I can't pronounce it because I don't speak French.
Paris, je t'aime.
There you go.
My French accent is terrible.
Oh, well, it sounded more legit than anything I was gonna go. Paris, je t'aime. Je t'aime.
I love Paris.
The Jam.
People are just going to say that she said it terribly.
And now,
French anthology.
now the next one is the movie that my ex-girlfriend called the movie that shall not be named. Because
it's the Voldemort of the Wes Craven collection. Is that what I'm getting? This was
certainly my least favorite of the Wes Craven movies I've seen, and it's my soul to take.
Yeah, I think I saw a trailer for it, and it never really lit me.
Again, it was another mystery of who done it, but it is so unmemorable.
I always got it confused because it has the same kind of cover like Identity.
Yeah.
Have you seen the cover for Identity?
That came out way early, though.
I know, but I'd always get confused.
You know,
I've seen it.
People, it's a killing kids kind of thing. Who's doing it? And
a Cherry Falls type of deal.
And then, of course, Scream 4 for 2011, which leads us to 2015, where he launches the television series on MTV.
That's right.
So, I don't know. Has anybody seen that yet? I have yet to watch an episode.
I've watched a bit of it. I like the idea of, well, the first Scream, there's the flirting with, like, people have videos and there's the video stores. And, like, they have the one point in the party where there's a camera and it's actually recording and you see the killer moving by. I mean, this one makes more use of YouTube, more use of, like, camera media. But I've only watched, like, maybe a couple of episodes. There's still, like, that mystery. You have sort of a Dewey-esque type of deal.
Well, it makes me wonder how they can maintain that idea through whatever their episode count is, either 13, 22, whatever they picked up. But, you know, I recently saw some other ones. We're seeing a lot of movies go to television right now.
Yeah.
From Dusk Till Dawn, it sticks in my mind. Watch that on Netflix. And taking a movie and spreading it out over 13 episodes was painful to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there are certain aspects I certainly liked about it, but oh my god, I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, you're going into season 2. I'm hoping you don't redo any of those other movies and just go to some new territory. Part of how you do it,
awful. Part of how you do it is like, you know, in a movie you have like many kills.
Yeah.
And those kills are sort of scenes amongst themselves. And what you do is to get a series out of it, you take a kill, you make one of the episodes around that one kill.
Well, I mean, you're going to
investigations and anything that goes around with that.
But you're going to have the constant misdirect, and you're not going to reveal your killer till the end of the series, obviously.
Yeah,
and the constant misdirection and stuff. But
you also have to start with a large cast because you have to misdirect a lot,
and you got to kill them off, and still have some guys left by the end
for sure.
And you know, if you're going 13 episodes, that's a good body count. And how do you maintain the interest? So I am looking forward to checking it out and seeing, because you know, Hannibal turned out to be pretty good for television. In fact, I like Hannibal as a TV series, and sadly it's canceled, but I liked it more as a series than I did as a film franchise.
Well, he was an ongoing character. The victims weren't people that you had to spend the entire series with at all.
Yeah.
And it was just he was a character that was alive through several books. So it actually works better on television because you're focusing on the killer and you're with the killer the entire time. Whereas if you're doing it like as a slasher flick, you're not with the killer killer the entire time. So it's kind of harder to make that transition.
Bates Motel's been pretty strong as well. So
again, you're with the killer.
It's another. It's a very similar idea for sure.
Yeah, you're with the killer and his mom. You don't care about the victim.
And it's his formative years. You can see why he's so fucked up.
Yeah, like but the thing with the Scream movies, you're with the victims the whole time. Or the victims are possibly the killer, but you don't know. Yeah. So it's like that's the thing. Like with series, if you're wondering like why some what I think does work and doesn't work is focus. Is you can have a core group of people that you can focus on any TV series. Like the largest you have is like 5 or 6. You have a friends level, and that's it. Everybody else is disposable.
Yeah, for sure.
Any more than that, you can't do anything.
No, for sure. The thing that that whole idea of bringing a movie to TV doesn't interest me at all. I haven't looked into Scream. I haven't watched Hannibal. Like, the thing that I dislike...
You're the reason it got canceled, you fucker.
How dare you?
Just write to Invasion
You've
Remake
robbed
at
the world of Mads
Mikkelsen.
Mikkelsen.
No,
How dare you?
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen.
He's
I remember
amazing.
Valhalla Rising. Terrible. But,
he's an amazing Hannibal, though.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I don't care if he'll kill me and eat me. I'm on board.
The thing I don't like about television in general, because I've said many times that I don't watch a lot of television or TV shows, is that sometimes you don't need 13 episodes to tell a story. You can do it in 90 minutes. You can do it in 2 hours, and it's more effective. I hate dragging shit out because then you're full of filler forever.
I'd say even with these new shorter episode counts, like a standard network TV show, I'd say on average, if you get 3 to 5 excellent episodes, you're doing really good.
Yeah.
Out of a 22 episode season,
exactly.
Which is
it's
retarded.
Yeah.
And then you get to those HBO level stuff, like let's go with Dexter, for example. Out of all of its seasons, I think there was only one where they utilized their entire season to the best effect. Most of those series, I think, could have been shaved down by almost 5 episodes. And I'm sorry, if you don't have enough to even get to 13 episodes without going into obvious filler territory, then, give me those strong 6 episodes. I like that UK model. You don't have time to suck. And if you suck in those 6 to 8 episodes, you're out of there.
The British model is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you only need 6 to do a full arc. That's like the whole series. And get it all done.
And sometimes it's just like almost a series of movies. My wife really likes that Sherlock show.
Sherlock's amazing.
Which of course, I can't stand it. But
love it.
It's amazing.
Totally
but each
love
thing
it.
is like an hour and a half long, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really
They're
like
movies.
3 or 4 mini movies.
They are, yeah.
But they get where they're going, and then the sequels, if you will, like it's new content. So you're not like strung along forever. And that's the thing. I find television almost a little bit insulting because I watch too much movies, which is why I do this podcast, guys. I watch a lot of movies, and I can figure things out relatively quickly. So if I have your show figured out in 2 episodes, I don't want to wait 13 or 14 or 20 episodes to get to where it's going. Yeah. And especially if the concept is weak, because, of course, I don't like anything, and I just like Dexter for the reason that the concept was dumb. And they went 22 episodes, and however long season 1 was.
I think it went 7 seasons.
Something like that.
And honestly, head-scratchingly so. I watched all 7 seasons, and even in my mind, only one stands out as a really strong season. I can think of maybe 2 more that were decent seasons.
Was it the Lithgow season?
No, actually, second season's my favorite from start to finish. But
Which one was that?
Lithgow's probably my second favorite series.
Because that one I remember going out of my way to watch because I just like Lithgow, and I was like, I kind of knew Dexter, but I wasn't
was
that
where
invested.
he got the crazy British girlfriend, and the cop figured out who he was, and they take him to this lakeside cabin.
If he did 2 series of Dexter,
that one was crazy.
So there's some because we're getting way off track.
Yeah, now we're off track.
Yeah, we're off track. So to drive it back to track, just talk a little bit about a few of the things that Wes Craven just did the screenplay for.
Sure.
We kind of went through Nightmare on Elm Street, but he did the screenplay for 3.
Yeah.
Dream Warriors, which of course is probably everybody's favorite.
Love it.
Unless they're super hipsters and then they love New Nightmare more, but they're lying to you. Everyone loves Dream Warriors.
Second favorite is New Nightmare. Dream Warriors, first favorite.
I disliked New Nightmare when I saw it when I was younger because I didn't get it.
Yes.
Like I would have been, 14 or 15?
Yeah,
that's not your thing.
When I watch it now, I appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's a really strong
He had written
film.
Dream Warriors, which was awesome. Something I thought was cool in the world of horror remakes is that Wes Craven wrote the remakes for Hills Have Eyes and Hills Have Eyes 2. I've only seen the first remake.
I've only seen the first remake as well, and I quite liked it.
Yeah, it was effective.
Yep.
It's not as torture porny as movies of that time period were. It definitely has a lot of elements of that, which it was the direction of horror for that time period.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot less humanizing the people who are being killed and the cannibals.
But that's the thing that happens now with all movies. They don't want that.
But
studios won't have it.
It was solid as a remake, and just interesting that it wasn't like, oh, we're going to remake Hills Have Eyes, and Joe Nobody, who did some independent short about monsters, gets Godzilla or whatever, right? So that was interesting. And then the same year, he wrote the screenplay for Pulse, which was during that Let's Remake Everything Japan did.
Yeah, and that was a Japanese remake of a movie of the same name.
Yeah. Well, it had a different...
Well,
whatever the Japanese name was.
Yeah, it translated to Pulse.
Yeah, and then this was one of the ones that I watched pre-show, because I didn't realize that Wes Craven was involved in it in any way.
Yeah.
And it suffers from its time a lot.
Oh, really?
I didn't like the Pulse that much when I saw it the first when it was in theaters. So
I thought it was okay the first time, but it's funny when it's like
interesting
cell
elements
phones
in
and
it.
PDAs are going to be our downfall. I'm like, God, you have no idea.
Sorry,
you were right.
That's the one I'm unfamiliar with. So can you give me like the quick lowdown on Pulse?
Okay,
What's Pulse
basically
again?
the lowdown with Pulse is that everybody has cell phones, and they're all Motorola Razors.
This is
of course.
Ghost in the Machine.
Ghost in the Machine stuff, and it's flip phones. And everybody has dial-up internet, because like I don't know if they always talk about Wi-Fi in that movie, but every time the spooky computer is possessed, the LAN cable's pulled out, and they're like, "But it's unplugged, idiot! It's got Wi-Fi." But yeah, so basically,
you've just said that in the previous scene.
It's basically The Ring. There's this spooky website where you're seeing people kill themselves, and then it makes you want to kill yourself because ghosts start hunting you, which are like flickery electricity ghosts, and they want to like drain your will to live. And the whole world is just so connected with their PDAs and Motorola Razors and giant cell phone towers that like there's no escape. And it's like, oh, you have to get away, go to where there's no signal, and then you'll be safe. Because they can't exist because they can only run on the wavelength of red or some bullshit, right? Like, it's got some weak points. It's a really great concept.
See, that would be a fun remake. Well,
it is a remake.
I know, but another remake.
Remake it again.
Well, we might talk about
we can talk about remake it properly.
But it's a solid movie, and it has good ideas, and it suffers from being a mid-2000s teen ghost horror movie, and like with The Grudge and The Ring, and and actually it was slated to come out the same time as The Ring, and the studio said no. You can't do it. It's too similar. So they waited a little bit, so maybe you'd even suffered a little more because it came out a little later.
Well, then by that point, we were just getting deluged with J horror remakes and PG horror movies.
People were starting to get tired.
And it totally just got washed away. But it was a good idea, and it spawned 2 direct-to-DVD sequels 2 years later that he had nothing to do with. Mm-hmm. And again, they are brilliant in concept and freaking mind-bogglingly terrible in execution. Like, if it was a television program that came out in like 99, you could maybe forgive some of its like inadequacies. But again, it's a really great idea. Yeah. And watching that movie again with the screenplay that Wes Craven wrote, it's so relevant to how absorbed. Like, even now, I'm holding my smartphone.
Yeah, we have to refer to them all the time.
You're so invested in these things and so distracted that you don't notice the things around you. And I mean, if all of our fellow students were committing suicide, we would notice that probably.
Yeah.
But it speaks volumes, and especially at a time when cell phones were getting smaller and like there wasn't as big a dependency on technology as there is right now. So, and then he goes on to do writing The Hills Have Eyes 2. He was involved, I think, as a producer, Last House on the Left. He's, credited with the characters in the remake of Nightmare, but I don't think he had.
I think he's got credits for even Nightmare fan films on IMDb because he created the characters. So
yeah.
Did he write the video game? Did anybody figure that out? Did he write the video game?
I don't know.
I gotta look into that.
I don't know. That's on the Remake This Video Game podcast that we have to do.
Somebody else's podcast.
Remaking Donkey Kong for today's video gamers.
Yeah. So, we talked about our first, but what is your favorite Craven film?
Oh, man.
That's a tough call.
Or even his strongest.
I think his strongest is the one that I consider the cornerstone of his career, which is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
It was so innovative. It's brilliantly done. Well executed. It's genuinely scary. It spearheads so many great actors into the public consciousness. Sure. Spawned a franchise the likes of which horror hasn't seen since the 70s. It just is so important. But it's favorite probably just because it was my first one and I've seen it 100 times. People Under the Stairs. I like to go back to that one. But I don't know.
I certainly think that's his most interesting movie.
Nightmare stands.
Yeah, his most unique.
Yeah.
That is a tough call. Like a really tough call. Like just even this discussion, my mind has changed about 5 times because I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that movie. I remember how good it was. I remember this. I remember that. I don't know. I think for one that I remember and I most associate with Wes Craven was Scream. Because at the time I was like, oh my God, these people are saying the things you think. And I'm like going, okay. And then they have like the rules of the movies. I'm like, those are the rules of the movies. Like I just, at the time, now it seems tired. But I tell you, at the time, it was the most clever, most insane thing that anybody would do is put that stuff in a script.
Yeah. Call it almost satire itself, but not in the way that the Wayans satire things, in like a very like gritty, real, serious way.
Yeah. Well,
hints of humor, but like it was like he got lucky as a director because Scream did for him what Nightmare did for him in the 80s. It reestablished him twice as a genre-defining director, right? Which I can't think of anybody. I mean, you look at Carpenter. I love Carpenter. What in the last 10 or 15 years has been as good as Halloween or The Thing?
Yeah, and that's just it. Will we see a horror director like this again? I don't know. This might be up for the next generation of film fans to discover in the long run. But
can you duplicate, or not even duplicate, but reinvigorate?
A
genre like he had twice?
Well, yeah, and especially with the changing industry as it is it something that's even achievable anymore?
I can't think of a current, like, non-legacy horror director.
There's certainly some great upcoming directors and that have kind of carved out their own legacies in and of themselves, like James Wan, but
he's gotten away from it, though.
Yeah, he's gotten away from... Well, he wants to do other things, and I totally get that. Fast and Furious, man. So
true.
I thought we'd have
$1 billion movie.
I thought we'd have it with Danny Boyle after 28 Days came out, which was a genre-defining, brilliant movie, and then he
never intended to.
No, he's done other stuff, but he had other stuff that he was doing beyond that. Like 28 Days was not his milieu. That's not what he was known for.
No, not at all. He was never intended to be a horror director. He just wants to be a director, and that's at the end of the day, that's what filmmakers want to be. They want to be filmmakers. True.
And to be fair, 28 Days, it's a horror, but I mean, like his style of filmmaking was very centered on just like characters and relationships. It was just the rage zombies were incidental, really.
Yeah. Well, you guys can tell us what your favorite Wes Craven movie is at Invasion Remake on Twitter and invasiontheremake@gmail.com and Invasion the Remake on Facebook. So chime in, let us know what your favorite Craven is, and let us know if you like this retrospective, if you want to see more of them, and who you might want us to talk about next. Wes left us with a great legacy of characters and films, and he'll be greatly missed as a filmmaker, and his legacy will certainly live on. 76 years young, and he was still making movies right up until the end, and we still might see some of the products of that because he had other TV series and stuff in development when he passed, so we still could have some more Wes Craven yet to come.
Yeah. And for sure, like, if you haven't seen like the previous back catalog of those movies that we've talked about, with the exception of a couple, go back and watch them. Go back and watch the beginning of what started.
And as you heard, there's some we need to go revisit as well, because we skipped over Hills Have Eyes 2 and
all the TV movies,
the TV stuff. I mean,
and to be fair,
going into this episode, we didn't even know a lot of those existed. So
Yeah, like I knew of a lot. Like the thing is, with this podcast, we kind of like we're looking at like films with like theatrical releases. Like I want to go back and like investigate a lot of its TV directing that he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, we may not cover it on this show, but you can bet we're not done looking at Wes Craven films. So with that, I'm good. Before we go, well, after we say our goodbyes, I'm going to leave you with a little quote from Wes Craven. But with that, I'm Jason.
I'm Jeff.
And I am Trish.
And we're out of here.
Well, yeah, I have a very sort of ambivalent view of myself as an artist or as a filmmaker. I mean, somebody once, when I was first starting in films in New York, says, if you want something on your gravestone and you're in the film business, I think the best thing is filmmaker. If you can honestly say that, that's all you need to say. And that I think I would like that on my gravestone, along with whatever you do, don't fall asleep.